Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. It's a great pleasure. I will share my slides now and enter the full screen mode. So I will see the chat questions only afterwards, after finishing my presentation. Today I'm going to talk about tech decisions in self-organized teams, or why tech decisions should be given to the people. My name is Konstantin. As you heard, I am CTO and co-founder of cosee. Sorry for having a German description here. Just to check when, yes, the slides afterwards will be in English. Only the advertorial at the beginning is with German captions. Sorry for that. What is cosee doing every day? Our everyday business is building great products together with our customers. That means starting product development with customers that are starting their digital journey, developing their first digital product. If you are familiar with German, you can visit our website and see a gig of last year where we digitized the complete fair platform for board games. And that's one of the type 1 customers starting a digital journey. The other customers are already developing digital products, and their business is growing faster than their development organization, and they think, hey, we have to scale up our development organization and need people that are used to product development, that are used to agile development, that are used to work together, and not just hiring freelancers and putting them together to a brand new team. That's our approach to product development, understanding what's the product, and afterwards building the product in some kind of agile approach. And within these expert teams, you can see in the middle of that picture, often the question arises what technologies to use. Especially these customers on the left-hand side on the slide before don't have any preferences what the technologies should look like. They are focusing on, hey, please build my product. I don't know what Python is. I don't know what Java is. I've never heard of Terraform. Sounds terrific. Please let your teams decide. And to motivate that topic, I just want to start and have some kind of short flashback and think about, why should teams decide which technologies to use? And these short flashback is a very personal one, because these three guys on that slide are the three founders of cosee, my company. I am the CTO, the guy with a tool on the right-hand side. And we have our CEO, and as we are a spin-off of a scientific institute, there is the scientific people in the middle. And in the beginning, every decision in the company was done by us. Technology, project planning, which products to develop, how to hire people, how to organize the companies, how the salary is organized. And after a while, we realized that this is some kind of big bottleneck, because developers were getting more angry and angry. Decisions last long and long and long, and we had poor outcomes of decisions, because my background before was some kind of consultancy in the banking and insurance sector. And I tended to think about solutions that are very enterprise scale and so on, and did not match the problems of our developers in all cases. That means they got angry, they got poor decisions from their CTO, from me, and it lasted long time because I was some kind of bottleneck deciding all the technical about the technical problems and so on. And a second thing that occurred is something that I'd like to call the manager-maker problem. That means if you found a company and start building up a business, at the first moment, everything in a tech company besides tech is your business, and your company is growing, and you are maybe the first developer in the company, and you're staffing your team is growing, your product development organization is growing. And there's a point in time, or a span in time, where your focus has to shift from developing microservices in Java or Go or Terraform scripts to leadership tasks, to company tasks, and so on. And that problem is that if you are highly integrated in the development organization, and the development organization is highly relying on your decisions and your leadership in a very technical way, you are a great bottleneck and are not able to focus on all the leadership and business development and so on, which is necessary in that stage of your company development. And if we try to have an abstraction of that problem of decisions done by deciders and not by teams, the deciders might be a manager or architect or CTO or whatever. The problem is, in general, the team identifies a problem or a thing that needs a decision. And then, as they are not allowed to decide it on their own, they will inform the decider, the decision maker, the manager, architect, or CTO. And they will provide the most relevant information from their point of view. What's most relevant to make a good decision? And that's normal. We are all humans. These information set, the set of information is highly biased by what the team thinks is important to make a good decision. And if you have a very good decision maker, he will try to find out, to connect the dots, to find the pieces of the puzzle that are missing for him to make a good decision. And tries to have the whole big picture. And if the picture is complete from his point of view, he will make the decision and communicate this decision to the team, and they will fulfill the decision or implement the solution and so on, use the technology, build a prototype, whatever. And in the best case, the team will say, hey, that's a good decision, Mr. Manager. That's the same decision we would actually have made. But in most of the cases, it's more a, holy shit, why did he decide? So, oh no, he has no plan of what the software business is in our team, and this decision is just crap. And we now have to implement that decision. And the next problem is, if the decision is good from the point of view of the team, it might be a bad decision, though, because it's not fitting the problem the team had in the past. For example, the team says, hey, we found out that the massive data we try to store in our data store exceeding the capacity of our current data store. And the solution is not right for the mass of data we try to store now and in the future. It was a good decision in the past because we had not that mass of data, but now we have to switch the storage technology because that mass of data and connection points and so on. And they prepare a decision, and the decision maker makes the decision, and they think, hey, it's a good decision. And they start building prototypes, migrating data, and find out, hey, it was the wrong decision. Now we have to start the process again because we figured out that our favorite solution and the thing the decision maker decided does not fit our problem. New situation, and this process starts again. Okay, just a second. We try with our architectures to have architectures now with buzzwords like robust, resilient architectures that are not relying on single components, on single pieces of our architecture, of single pieces of potential failures, and so on. And we build organizations like that. That is neither robust nor resilient, because if the decision maker will get ill or is stuck, has no time, no capacity for making all these decisions, wide parts of the organization are just tapped out. They are not able to continue their work because they are waiting for decisions of their CTO, architect, lead developer, whatever. And the funny thing is, the team identified the need for a decision. And in most cases, they have all relevant information to make a good decision. And there are studies that say if a team member and the boss are making a decision, in 70% of the cases, the decision is just the same. And in the remaining 30% of the cases, the decisions of the team member are better, much better than the decisions done by the boss, simply because the team members do all have all relevant information to make good decisions. And the next thing is, many organizations tend to use or adopt things like DevOps and things like, hey, you build it, you run it. And you build it, you run it is just a trick if the team is not able to decide which technologies to use. Because yes, you didn't choose that bleeding edge JavaScript framework to use, or that bleeding edge new cloud technology. That was my decision as a CTO, but in the end, it's your service. You have to stand up in the at night if it breaks. It's your service. And every developer will say, hey, sorry, people, that's not working like that, because I have to decide which technologies to use, and then it's you build it, you run it. I won't buy it if you decide which technologies I have to use and I have to support when they break. Okay, that means I think decisions done in development teams really make sense. It's a cool idea because you don't have these delays, you don't have bottlenecks, the people have all relevant information, and everything is fine. Is it fine? The thing is, I think you won't listen to my talk if everything is working great at every time, anytime in teams deciding about technology. And I'll show you some patterns or stereotypes I observed in technical self-organized teams. And that's some kind of therapeutic approach, things from my history I will show to you. The first pattern is the lone wolf. Hey, cool, we're deciding on technology and ourselves. No. You got that wrong. That does not mean every team member can decide about technologies on their own. That means You as a team now decide together what technologies to use. Oh, okay, but I'll just start to use XYZ, MongoDB, because I love MongoDB. I implemented that new module in Python because Python is the new hot shit and I love Python and it's cool. But that's not a team decision. That's a lonely wolf decision without talking to the team and making a decision together. And it's connected, this pattern is connected to the next one, which I would like to call bring your own path technology. We had something similar in the past at cosee. We had, I think we were 13, 15 people and had 6 programming languages: Java, Ruby, Python, Scala, and I think I missed 2 of them. And everybody is using his or her favorite technology. Hey, this at the moment favorite technology. Hey, I know I was a big fan of Scala 3 months ago, but I think Scala is not that hot thing. Now I'm using Golang, or I'm using Kotlin or Clojure or whatever. That means, like in Harry Potter, every developer is using his favorite melody, and that leads to the next problem or the next pattern. Sorry, I'm not familiar with Clojure. Okay, we have a production problem. Production is down. We have to fix that. Oh, yeah, I know. But the problem, as far as I can see, the problem is in a component that's written in Scala, and that's done by Michael. And Michael is on holidays. He left yesterday. Yes, and he will be back in 2 weeks, and we have to wait 2 weeks until Michael is back to fix that problem. Sorry, that technology, I'm not familiar with that. And frankly spoken, I'm not interested to learn that technology. Michael should fix that shit if he's back, when he's back. No, are you kidding? As a decider, as a CTO or whatever, that's a complete deal breaker in technology organizations. Answers like, he will fix that in 2 weeks. I'm not familiar with that technology. The next pattern is, we made a decision for that. Oh yeah, when? On last Wednesday. On last Wednesday, we decided to use MongoDB in production for our new component. Yes, sure. We talked about, we had lunch and talked about several technology options. And my answer to that topic was, MongoDB is not completely nonsense. And now you are telling me that does mean to you, we decided to use MongoDB? Sorry, no. That was no decision. You didn't ask us for the decision. We had just a nice chat about technology options. This pattern is used often by lonely wolves or lone wolves if they try to have to legitimate their personal technology decisions by the team. Hey, let's have a chat about MongoDB. I built a cool prototype. Yeah, the prototype is really cool. Kudos for that. Okay, we decided to use MongoDB. The opposite of this is everybody is involved. And maybe you know that scenario. We had that in the past. I think that was like this dog whistles. You can't hear them if because only dogs can hear them. But we had some kind of technology decision dog whistle in our company. If one of the teams is was starting a technology decision process, some kind of technology decision dog whistle forced all employees, all developers in the company to gather around their team and discuss these technology decisions. Join us and provide input and endless discussions about what would be cooler to use Java or Python for that, or to use object relational mapping, or just use SQL statements. Endless discussions, no results. And one result of that scenario, of that problem, is that teams or organizations start to wonder about, is it a good idea to have some kind of team-based decision process? I think since we had been starting team-based decision process, we had all these endless discussions. We had rumors and no results. Is it a good idea to have this team-based discussions, or have some kind of shadow CTOs? People like, if you know the Phoenix project, Brand from the Phoenix project is a classical shadow CTO from my point of view, in my opinion. It's these are the people in organizations you better talk to. You better have to challenge your architecture setup, your technology decision, and so on. Did you talk to Michael? Why? Michael is not part of our team. Oh, I think you will learn that in the future. It's better to ask Michael before and not afterwards, because he will make the pain of your technology decision even bigger if you ask him afterwards. A classical sentence said by shadow CTOs like Michael, for example, is, if you had asked me before, I have been told you that's a silly idea. It won't work. And now I'm not able to help you. You have to fix it on your own. Next time, ask me before, please. And now we have the problem again, because we have these decision cycles. I had colleagues in the past that said to me, Konstantin, I'm not interested in working at the office. Why? The problem is I'm not able to do my work. Why? Every 50 minutes or 5 minutes, there is a different colleague of ours and asking me things like, hey, Michael, can you just review my architecture? Hey, Michael, can you just help me doing X, Y, Z? Hey, Michael, do you have a good idea what technology to use? Blah, blah, blah. Classical Brand scenario from the Phoenix project. And I said, that's a bit of a homegrown problem, because you give the people the feeling they have to talk to you about all the things and to secure their asses. And the problem with these shadow CTOs is a real CTO is noted in some kind of org chart. It's part of the org chart. That means, hey, I am direct report of the CTO, or the CTO is making technology decisions. It's clear for everybody in the organization. It's a written rule that the CTO will do the technology decisions. Shadow CTOs are not part of any org chart or something like that. That means you have to learn in a painful way that they are supporting or making decisions in the organization. Very, very problematic. But these people are very useful for the teams, because it's not, they are not being asked for advices because otherwise they will punish the teams. They ask the right questions. Did you think about operating that thing? Okay, your ideas, we will use MongoDB for that. But we have an AWS cloud stack, and we try to integrate it with other AWS service. What are the costs for that thing? Oh, that's a good thing. I never thought of that. What are the costs of that service? And have you ever thought of integrating it with our AWS security groups? And what is about security? Are we transferring data across the internet, encrypted, and so? That are all valid questions, Michael. Never thought of that. Okay, maybe MongoDB is not a good idea for that. That means shadow CTOs are useful. These people are useful because they have a lot of experience and ask the right questions. The problem is that, and that's the last pattern, the problem is there's another extreme. People in teams saying, hey, the CTO allowed us to make decisions on our own. We give a shit on expert opinions. I'm not interested in asking any of our colleagues in other teams about their ideas on JavaScript frameworks, on deployment in AWS. I'm not interested. And the problem is that you have problems in the company being solved multiple times. Hey, you had this problem with React Router? Yes. We had that too, 2 months ago. Cool. We didn't ask you, so we didn't know you had the same problem and could help us. That's a big problem. Having isolated team decisions without asking, looking for experts and asking them. Okay. Seems to be a hard thing to have technology decisions in teams. But what's the alternative? Should we use management decisions again instead? Or have something like commit strip? Provides us with something like scissors. How do they call it in English? Rock, paper, scissors to do our technology decisions? No, that's not the end of the presentation. I brought you some patterns we use at cosee to have good and pragmatic technology decisions. The first thing is, we call it in German Drei-Personen-Regel. You can use the English term three musketeers. You have to have at least three people able and willing to support a new technology, which means fixing bugs in production in that technology. Willing and able to. That's important. And that's some kind of trade-off, because if we there are technology organizations that try to avoid every kind of new innovations in a technology way. That means if we had no innovations in our technology stack, we at cosee would still develop enterprise Java beans and deploy it to JBoss 4. The other way around, it was this this time span where we had 13 or 15 employees or developers and 6 programming languages in place. And this three musketeers is something of a trade-off, because if a developer wants to use a new technology, he or she has to pitch that technology at his colleagues. Something like, hey, I want to start using Kotlin instead of Java. Okay, do it. No, I have to have 2 more colleagues that are willing and able to learn Kotlin together with me, and are willing and able to support problems with Kotlin in production and fix bugs in production in Kotlin. Okay. I think Kotlin is hot. I will join you in that and help you. And I will one of the three musketeers. And you won't have any Michael is on holidays and I'm not used to that technologies anymore, because you have at least 3 person that are willing and able to fix bugs in production in that language or with that database or with that framework or whatever. 2 is not is two musketeers is, from my point of view or from my experience, is too few. You have to have at least 3 person, better 4 or whatever. The next rule is, or pattern is, a decision is made, a technology decision is made by those that stand up at night when it breaks. That's that dog whistle problem. Hey, I heard you were deciding about which JavaScript framework to use, how to deploy your cloud stack, blah, blah, blah. Maybe I can help you with that decision. Okay, it's okay. You can give advices. You can help us support our decision. You are not allowed to make the decision. You are not part of the team. That's you build it, you run it. Those guys that stand up at night have to make the decision. And we derived some kind of short 5 or 6 question agenda for pragmatic technology decisions. What is the decision about is the first question. And that's avoiding the we made a decision problem. Yeah, it's on Wednesday. To make clear what's the decision about, what are we going to decide? We have these discussions in customer projects and so on. The customer wants us to decide which technology to use for all his products. No. For just one product. Oh, okay. It might be possible that I got that wrong. What's the topic? What is the decision about? The next one is, what criteria do we use to decide? And don't, I have been a consultant for at least 10 years and an IT consultant. Don't use these big Excel sheets to create decision matrix. Maybe it's post-it at the wall or simple MyRobot. Which criteria is mandatory for our technology decisions? And that avoids something like these endless decisions like, hey, if we use X, Y, Z, we could also do things like, okay, but that was no decision criteria. But that's cool. We could use that in the future. That's no current problem, and we should fix current problems and not future problems. What options do we have? And now it's your time. It's beauty contest. Everybody, please bring your favorite technology option for that decision and pitch it. And that's the thing of who stands up at night, who is part of the team, and who decides. Hey, we have a designer in the team. Is he part of the decision? Hey, there is this platform engineer helping us from time to time. Is he allowed to be part of the decision? Hey, there is some kind of lead developer for helping our team. Is he or she allowed to be part of the decision? And the last question is, who are the relevant experts within the company? Who has knowledge to share with us? And your team might have problems creating decisions and discussing. And that's a book advice, especially for Scrum Masters, facilitators, or Agile coaches. Facilitating team decisions this book contains a set of nice patterns to help teams to actually decide something and not just discuss things. Looks cool or sounds cool. That means we have these patterns. We have the Three Musketeers rule. We have this catalog of questions to answer to guide our technology decisions. Hey, that's cool. And the team is deciding and they are pretty happy with that. But most of the organizations I know consist of more than one team. That means what is happening if you have more than one self-organized team? And managers start asking questions like, stop, are you kidding? That means every single team uses a different database, potentially. Yes. That's a problem. We have to create synergies between teams. No, we don't. Why? It's much more easy if we have a centralized platform and so on and so on. And now is the question is, which aspects of software related or technology decisions have to be company-wide or across teams? It might be something like, hey, we have to create maximum synergies, or something like shared nothing. Every team can use what they want to use, and there's nothing shared between these teams. And the next question is, who are the relevant experts? Because the problem is in cross-functional teams, for example, the red-colored guy in this example is a front-end developer. He does not know any front-end developers in the company because he is part of a cross-functional team with green-colored back-end developers and an orange-colored DevOps guy. He doesn't know any other front-end developers to ask them for advice or use their expertise about JavaScript frameworks and which one to use and how to fix problems with the React router and so on. How do others do it? There are companies out there, agile companies with self-organized teams that have, I think, that have good processes to have technology decisions. And there's a big company, Spotify. They have something in place, the Spotify model. You might know that. They have cooler names for every concept in their model. They don't just call it teams, it's a squad. And they have chapters that connect all these front-end developers. And they have something that is called community of interest that is across the whole organization and where people could gather that are interested in integration testing or in testing as a whole or specific technologies and so on and so on. Okay, Spotify has cooler names for every of that concept. And is there a common description of that? Yes, it is. In the book Scaling Lean and Agile Development by Craig Lahman and Bess Fodder, the book is really good. I bought it, I don't know why, and had it in my bookshelf for months. And after months, I searched for something specific and was this book, no. Took the book out and found out that this book is structured in experiments. Every chapter has a headline like try XYZ or avoid XYZ. And that's some kind of patterns or experiments. And I found two ones fitting our problem. First one, try cultivating communities of practice and use communities of practice for functional learning. That means the general term for what Spotify calls chapters is communities of practice. And they are focusing on shared standards. What do teams at our organization have to have in common? Something like we all use Jenkins, we all use GitHub, and so on. And how do we use Jenkins? How do we use GitHub? What are our coding guidelines and so on? That's the first one, shared standards. The next one is solve everyday problems. Hey, sorry, guys, I have a problem with my cloud deployment. I don't get it. Please help me seeing the problem. The third one is distribute knowledge. And there is a good short book by Emily Weber on communities of practice. It's named Building Successful Communities of Practice. And Emily says that from her point of view, sharing and distributing knowledge is the core concept and the core idea of communities of practice, because it's this collaborative learning of tacit knowledge. Something like which hotkeys do you use together with your development environment? How is your code organized? What are your beliefs about good code, about good structured code? All that things that are very hard to write down and distribute the knowledge just in a written form. That's the practical and the most valuable asset of communities of practice. And the fourth one is foster innovation. And in order to have good communities of practice, you have to focus on what's our domain, what's the topic. And this topic has to be as specific as possible, not just an abstract, broad topic. It's the same like meetups. If you call a meetup Programming Meetup Germany, I think people will be not interested because they don't know what the value, the added value of the meetup is. If you say, hey, Cloud Native Meetup Saar, okay, it's focusing cloud and development topics and so on. I'm getting it. I'm interested. The second one is community of practice, contains community, who is involved, but also topics like how do you organize the onboarding process of new members of your organization, of new employees, of new developers, of new engineers. And the third one is practice. Okay, Konstantin is called community of practice. That sounds reasonable. But that's a difference, because a community of two communities of interest, we saw them a few slides ago at the Spotify example. A community of practice is trying to change or to improve the your everyday work at the company, at your development teams, at your engineering teams, by creating these outcomes, something like linter descriptions, blueprints for services, standard implementations, frameworks, base libraries, templates for documentation, and so on, to help your developer community to continuously improve their daily work. But participation in these communities of practice is voluntary. It's not mandatory. It's not, hey, you all have to be part of communities of practice. It's voluntary to be part of them. And another good book about community of practice has this wonderful picture of some kind of fire of if you're going with a tent out there and have a big fire and the people are gathering around, because this fireplace is on one hand creates warmth for all the people that are currently in the community, but the fire shine is also an attractor for people from out of the community to become attendees. Something like, oh, that sounds interesting. That fire looks nice. I think it's warm at the fire. We have to join the others. That book that I mentioned before is Cultivating Communities of Practice. It's much longer than Emily's book and much more theoretical, but it's the standard book about community of practice. Important for your communities and your organization is what's the community's focus, because they can have different focuses. Helping communities is, hey, please help me fixing my React router, my cloud deployment, whatever. Best practice communities start building best practice things like templates, linting, whatever. I have seen none of them in reality of cloud knowledge stewarding communities, but innovation communities. Things like, hey, let's try this new technology things, and so on and so on. And that's interesting because you have to have a clear focus. Are we solving everyday problems, helping community, or are we fostering innovation in our community? Because otherwise the people will get frustrated. They are hoping to get help with their everyday problems and are only listening to innovation discussions. You can use something like a Carta as working agreements. Maybe you can team contracts from the Agile scene. We have something in the real world located at our office at the moment where most of us are working remote. We have something similar in the online world, and that's some kind of information radiator on our main floor. Thanks for listening. That was my little small short journey through, I think, a pragmatic approach to team decisions and bringing them back to development teams. And now I'm open to questions.
Yeah, Konstantin, I have a question. You see, I've been in many places, mostly in enterprises, where communities of practice were a thing. And what I've learned in that time is that it's mostly a thing coming down from management, people telling engineers, you should have a community of practice, go form one, and then discuss the future of our innovation and of our technology sharing and stuff like that. The outcome typically was engineers that weren't able to do stuff because they, one, weren't empowered, two, didn't make this decision themselves. So they were kind of forced into it, or wishful thinking forced them into it. And I wonder if you might have tips for that. So how can you move communities of practice in a place like this, or those that haven't started yet and haven't got off yet? How can we move that into the right direction? Because in general, it's a very good concept, but it needs to be motivated from within, I guess, inherently, and not coming from top down.
At first, completely agree with that. I had discussions after that talk on conferences like, oh, Konstantin, our CTO came back from a conference and said, hey, we have to start chapters or communities of practice, and we will have that 5. This is focusing on blah, this is focusing on, and you are part of that, and you go there, you go here. But it doesn't work, Konstantin. Can you help us? It won't work like that. The problem is communities. People often ask me, how can we found communities? And in most of the cases, you don't have to found communities. They are actually there. You have to find them, not found them, because you have communication networks and structures, let's say Slack channels, where developers gather in a very natural way and discuss their problems and exchange technology information, post links to meetups, and so on. And that are communities of practice. You just have to find them and give them the right to make technology decisions, and not just found and, hey, just keep on dancing together. The music is nice, isn't it? Keep on dancing. We don't have time and are not interested in dancing. That means my primary answer is don't try to found community of practice, try to find them. The communication networks in your organizations between developers, and make them official and give them the right to make technology decisions.
Yeah, definitely. So we got a question on LinkedIn, and it's a good one, I guess. Now that you've transferred the decision-making process and the decision-making power right into the teams, what's your job now as a CTO?
Sounds like I'm jobless. One of my jobs is to remind the people that we have that process in place. One of my jobs is to remind people to inform new team members about how technology decisions work at cosee. My job is to have some kind of, it's a dirty enterprise word, I will use it, governance, something like, hey, is that a technology decision you made based on our rules we have in place, on our guidelines? Or is that, again, something like, hey, that's cool, we'll use that? That means I shifted the perspective. I am not involved in technology decisions. Maybe I'm one of the experts that the teams ask to have advices. Hey, Konstantin, we have A, B, and C, and all three of them look cool. Do you have some kind of advice which parameters we miss or something like that? And my role is, if I'm not some kind of consultant, expert asked by the team, I'm the governor of, hey, are you following the rules we created together, or are we just using the coolest technology we find at the first Stack Overflow post or Google search result?
Yeah, the Stack Overflow thing is a bad one. I encountered this just today again. So another thing that I'm definitely clueless about in many of the projects I'm running, and sometimes in our own team. Over time, you're making many decisions, and we're not living in a world where everyone's in the same office. So we haven't got the chance to have, communicate stuff in person, like over the desk. And then we have this multitude of let's say, channels where we consume information. It's like we are doing it on Slack. Some people do it on Mattermost. Then the customer comes over with Teams. Then you have a customer documentation system. You have an internal documentation system. You have different systems between different teams. How can you make sure that these technology decisions, let's say all rules have been followed, will, one, be distributed correctly so everyone gets the idea, so everyone knows there has been a decision, and how do they not get lost in time? So how can I remember? Where do I go back to learn? Why do we use MongoDB? Not sure when we decided that, but why?
Yes. I think the second aspect is the most relevant one, because if we, in times without Slack, Teams, and so on, that's also a big problem. Situations like Yeah, I remember we had a great discussion about using MongoDB, but I can't remember why we decided like that. What the heck? Why? Our approach is to, because it's the most relevant aspect, because I think the other one is less relevant, because the relevant people have to be involved in the process and not, hey, a decision has been made. People, listen to me. Here is the decision. You have to follow it. They have to be involved in that process. Maybe they have some kind of team ambassador in this community of practice, and he's coming back, hey, we had a big discussion on how to deploy on a cloud platform, and the result was we tend to do it like that, blah, blah, blah. And the most relevant aspect is, how do we persist these decision records? And there is a bandwidth. We are used to have wiki pages for that, bullet points, what was, like the questions, guided by the questions. What was the problem? What are the options? And so on and so on. And that, in most cases, that's enough. So, now I remember, yes, we talked about, yeah. And that was a big issue, and we tried with having a prototype. Yeah, now it's back. I remember that. I had used Arc42 in the past, parts of Arc42, but especially in enterprises, you have to be careful with that, because they tend to create their own life. Creating paper. Enterprises love to create paper, and that's the reason why I'm saying just use a wiki page and something very pragmatic and not over-engineered, because afterwards people would just fulfill the process and fill out the forms, and not will note down some vital points of the technology decision.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for that insight. Just a quick note on my end. I'm using also a very pragmatic approach in our company. So we have a stupid, simple changelog MD in our documentation repository. And whenever we do something, we add a line to it and link it to the respective document where the decision or the decision process is outlined. And yeah, we were through like 1,000 tools and try to automate all of this and pull information from all those channels. But in the end, yeah, it's a text file that gets compiled. Thanks, Konstantin. That was very insightful.